Welcome to Our Culture to the World. I'm Melvo Persico. When last did you have fufu? Just recently, I had fufu after having not eaten it for decades. Why so long, you ask? We'll get to that later. First, though, let's talk about where this food item came from. Research shows that fufu is West African in origin. Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Guinea, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sierra Leone, Benin, and Togo are some countries that have versions of this dish. This side dish is usually made using either plantains, root crops like cassava, and yams, or even a combination of these. In some countries, they also use the cassava or plantain flour to make fufu. And there are different versions in some places. I've learned that it's not just boiling it. There's some fermentation process that it has to go through to prepare this dish. Nevertheless, it's fufu. The traditional method of making fufu requires the use of a wooden mortar and pestle. One way of preparing this dish is pounding the boiled provision, so whether it's your yam or your cassava or your plantains, to a smooth consistency with a little water. Some people use some fat, and when I say fat, I mean, maybe a little butter or margarine or oil. And some people add seasoning, some don't. So for some, it's just the boiled provision, pounded to smooth consistency with, of course, you use the water and to help with the pounding to get it smooth. It is then formed into balls and eaten with stews or soups. This is the method that crossed the Atlantic with the slave trade. So versions of fufu exist in the Anglophone, Francophone, and Hispanic Caribbean. And in some places, there are different names. Like, for instance, I think in the Dominican Republic, they have mofongo, which really is very close to fufu. And but in many places, it still has that name, fufu. Growing up in Guyana, pounding boiled green plantains in a mortar for our traditional Sunday meal of hearty split pea soup was a weekly ritual. At least when I was very small, I remember that. Now, having fufu with my Sunday soup was always so satisfying. Nevertheless, for some reason, fufu preparation and consumption seem to have become a thing of the past. I don't recall having fufu after I started living on my own. Maybe it was because I never owned a mortar. Maybe it was because it was too time consuming.
Nobody got time for
that. I really can't say why. So sad to say, and I'm really not proud of this, my children don't know what fufu is. When I decided to do a little experiment to make some fufu using a method that I'm going to show you soon in a video, a little later in this video, I sent the video to my children and I asked them, do you know what this is? And no, they didn't. I'm not proud of that. They know now though. I still have to make it for them to taste because of course they only saw it. But so, it seems like some of the younger generation don't know about fufu. My brother shared this picture of a mortar and pestle a few weeks back on a visit to our paternal family home in New Amsterdam, Berbice. It got me thinking and longing for that satisfying taste I had not had in decades. Why is it that fufu seems to have become extinct? I wondered. Do people in Guyana still make fufu? If you do, please share your fufu story as a comment. Now, I decided, because I had these questions, I decided to conduct a small survey among some of my Guyanese family members and friends to see how many prepare fufu and the method they use. Some of these individuals still live in Guyana and others live overseas. Of the 29 who responded to the survey, 21, and that's 72.4%, don't make fufu. Some never have, others did in the past, but no longer do. The reasons for not making it include not having a mortar and pestle, not really liking the dish, the fact that the traditional method is too time consuming, and not knowing how to make it. Of the 8, and that's 27.6%, who say they still prepare this dish, half of this group use the traditional mortar and pestle method, while the other half use other methods. One person says she uses a food mill, you know those, yeah, Another person said she uses a potato masher, and somebody else uses a fork. I think that'd probably take a little time trying to crush that green plantain with the fork, right? And to get it smooth. Yeah. Interestingly, 2 of the respondents, no, as a matter of fact, not 2, 4 of the respondents who still use the mortar and pestle method are people who reside in the United States and Guyanese who live in the United States. And one of those is someone who is younger than 60 years old. One doesn't use the old-time big, more heavy mortar. She uses a small table model mortar that you can get to buy in the stores here. And she said that she uses the handle of her rolling pin as a pestle to pound the plantains. One thing I discovered when I was, thinking about talking about fufu and fufu making and so on, and I did a little bit of research. Some places there are fufu making machines. And this one that I'm showing you here, I saw it on Amazon. And this thing boils the provision, crushes it and everything. And so, it's like from start to finish, and then you just dip out your fufu and form your balls and use it with your stew or your soup. Well, I wasn't going to buy it, and I wanted to have some fufu. So I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Let me try using my food processor. And that is what I did. And I tell you, so you can see the process here. It is that I extracted the green plantains from this soup that I had made. It was some hearty veggie split pea soup. I put it in my food processor, and it was a quick process. And it was so smooth. I added some clarified butter. Then I put some black pepper, a little bit of dried seasoning, Mrs. Dash dried seasoning, mixed it all up. Yes, and then I formed it into balls, into my fufu, added it to my soup. And I tell you, it was so good. It took me back, that first mouthful, it took me back to another place and time.
That hit the spot.
In Guyana, we have different dishes that have their roots in Africa. We can think about sweet treats like kanki. And our cassava pone, yes. Dishes like cook-up rice, metemji. Now, these are still in existence. Why is it that fufu we seem to be losing that? Let's keep it alive. Let's keep fufu alive. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, and you don't want to spend that long time pounding plantains, use a food processor if you have one. If you don't have one, I saw on YouTube somebody, and I think that person was a Guyanese too, yeah. She had a bowl, and that was her mortar bowl, and her rolling pin. Yes, she used the handle of her rolling pin, and she used that to pound her plantains to make her fufu. And as I mentioned, some of the people who responded to my survey, potato masher, fork, hand mill, there are other ways, there are other things that we could do. to still, if you really like it and you miss it like me, you could still use, and it would be nice for the younger generation to still know about this food item that is really a part of our culture. So we don't want to lose this part of our culture, right? So make that fufu, right? Make that fufu. Let's keep our culture alive. Oh, and by the way, if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, go ahead and hit subscribe now. Be sure to share the video and keep watching. There's always something new to learn about culture and our culture to the world. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye now.